So we're going to start with the actual retail price of the guitar, and we're going to keep track of all of the parts and the labor and see how close we get in terms of price, so you can have a good idea of whether or not this sort of thing would make sense for you in the long run. So this is the guitar.
Pretty basic HSS strap. Again, this would be the least expensive actual Fender guitar you can get.
Okay, go. So very serious in Mexico, correct?
It is, yes.
Okay, let's play it without touching it. No setup, no nothing. Let's see how it feels.
It's good. Breakdown, the parts and labor in the range of $800, $900 probably.
Okay.
It's a lot of work we're doing.
Yeah.
But that would include all parts as well.
So we're starting with the guitar. It's about 800, 850 bucks retail. Then putting another 800 into it, give or take. So we're around 1,600, 1,700 bucks. If we're a guitar, then hopefully by the end we'll be within striking range of a custom shop equivalent.
Which start around $3,700, something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there are factors that we can't control, like the weight. It's a little light. Yeah. And that's just for the wood things.
Also poly.
It is poly. So there are those few things that we really can't, they're kind of variables we can't change. So now we're going to take the guitar in here, we're going to put it in flat, and we're going to do a full level and crown on the guitar, put a new nut on, a new nut. When it's out of there, we're going to go through, dress all these fronts out, dress the ends out really well, all of everything else, and we'll start out. Should be rocking. Right now, we're just doing
Not bad, you know.
I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah.
Looks like decent parts.
Definitely seen worse.
So we're going to put a pair of Lawlers. These are black bags, staggered black bags. So the neck in the middle, so I get the classic strap. Staggered bag, it's going to be old school. Non-balances and modern guitar, vintagey sounding type of thing. And then I really like Company makes a pickup called the 59 Trimbucker. Really like to pick up the top of the black strap and then go out to the front. I think it's going to be nice stuff. And then we're going to have two different caps. This one I'll be using bridge. This one I'll be using back in the middle. This one still the bridge, pick up. We'll pass some resistance in too. We don't have to go up. We'll have resistance there. We'll make it 250K now. So it's going to be it's fun. Everything's green. So we have a push pod over here, and that's going to tap the humbucker. I still have to add some resistors on there, but that's going to tap that. Add some resistors here. You got your humbucker, which one? Take much to really improve them. So the edge of the fingerboard is very sharp, which just doesn't feel great in your hand. So we're going to roll the edges. I'm going to do a different one than I had before just because it's fun. So we're going to go through and I'm actually going to do it by hand like this with a little razor.
And this is simulating essentially what happens with a vintage guitar, right? The more you play a guitar, naturally your hands are going to wear the fingerboard edges. And this is actually a big reason why I like a relic guitar. When a guitar is aged, it's not just an aesthetic thing. It feels old, it feels more broken in, and a big part of that is the rolled fingerboard edges. It's way more comfortable to play.
This is just roughed in, right? So it feels right there.
Oh yeah.
It won't take you through that, right? But that'll make it the place that's comfortable. Because actually, okay, that's a you can actually see where it doesn't. So, really great. So we finished the neck there now. We're going to do that. And we're actually going to, we've already kind of sat on that. So we're going to do, basically get it from the land tab. So we're going to put some good root on it. That's right, like the instrument.
9.5.
Yeah.
Something like that. You know.
And you can't smell in here right now, but it is the classic 70s cinder smell.
You just smell that.
It has that smell. It's like an old house. Really is hard to beat. This is weird though. It's like much brighter than I thought it would be in Rosewood. You said for like
The covers are not original, but the pickups themselves are. Specified with material on the next page. Everything is kind of as it should be. It's a really nice guitar. You have the acrylic bridge cover with it. And this one, of course, here also has the bar. And this is This is a 3-position switch, and you can still get the blended ones. You just have to do a bit of a balancing act.
Right.
And if you knock it the wrong way, it just kind of like pops back.
Right.
But you know, it's very cool. A lot of guys now even like the 3-way switch on some reissues. They'll get them that way. Really, just personal player preference.
Yeah, when I play Strats, I never go to the 2 and 4.
Yeah, if you don't need it, then it's so much quicker and easier to just know where you're at.
Yeah.
Because one thing with a 5-way switch, you can, if you're not looking, kind of soloing, just doing it, you can get lost.
Yeah.
Like, what position am I in? So, you know, and then like a lot of these vintage guitars, it's V profile neck.
Yeah.
So, real comfortable for the thumb. I think this has been refretted, but a really good job. And it sounds freaking phenomenal.